Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and we got a really special program for you today. As you know, this week I've been trying to get some guests on, get different perspectives, and talk to new people. And one of those people I thought would be interesting would be the Franc Analysis channel, because it's not only on Rockfin, but it's the kind of independent journalism that I not only respect, but I look to for a different perspective, because it isn't coming at things from mainline talking points. So joining us for the next 30 minutes or so is Franc Analysis Franco. We're going to find out all about him, how he got into this. He's got some heavy mother trucking hitters over on the channel, guys. I'm sure you may have seen him on other channels like Jimmy Dore, etc. But recently, I believe you interviewed Glenn Greenwald. I caught that one. And you've moved over to a platform that embraces free speech like Rockfin while getting suppressed on YouTube. So we have that in common. So please introduce yourself to my audience and let them know who you are.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm Franco from Franc Analysis. Jason, thank you very much for bringing me on the show. I watch your channel for the same reasons. There's a lot that we agree on, and you've opened my eyes about a lot of things. Investigating the deep state, talking about 9/11, talking about a whole bunch of other issues that we can't really talk about on YouTube. But, I'm on Rockfin also. And it's great that these platforms are coming out so that we can talk about these things. But yeah, it's crazy how YouTube is coming after all of us. Like, they've given you 2 strikes. They've demonetized my channel, and I'm less than 10,000 subscribers. But yeah, man, thank you very much for bringing me on the show.
Well, I'm happy to have you. So for my audience that isn't familiar with your work, you've been in this for, a little bit. How did you first get into it and then kind of transition from on-the-ground journalism to more of a media talking pundit, but also doing that as well? What drove you to get involved? And then after that, let me know what you think about the current state of journalism.
Yeah, I mean, I got started by I was a heavy watcher of independent media. Like, I would watch, Kyle Kalinske, Jimmy Dore. Like, as I would commute from home to my college, it would be like an hour drive. I would just listen, open my eyes up to a lot of stuff. But I think there was a lot of distraction with a lot of infighting. I felt like there wasn't enough self-awareness among some of the content creators. So I just wanted to join to help out, present some objective analysis. I did start out with some on-the-ground stuff. I interviewed Medea Benjamin, Anya Parampal on the ground. Because of the pandy and the lockdowns, I couldn't go out as much as I wanted to when I got started. Like, there was like a couple months where I was just in the studio, just a white wall behind me. But over time, I made some upgrades. And I got to say, what really opened my eyes was my interaction with my audience members. There's a lot of them that are way smarter than me that introduced me to channels like yours, introduced me to The Last American Vagabond, James Corbett. And, what really matters is, what's objective. You have to look at the information that people are presenting rather than just being biased because you're only looking at one side of it because, like, you agree with everything else that these people say. So you're giving them the benefit of the doubt for everything. Mm-hmm. Like, what really matters is, objective evidence. And that's what you do. That's what Ryan Christian does. And I mean, we have to be questioning everything. I don't understand why a lot of independent channels now question the mainstream media narrative, our politicians when it comes to foreign policy. But I mean, we have the same players involved with this, the pandy stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, let's take it back for a second on that, because I'm glad you said that. Donald Rumsfeld passed recently. He was the Secretary of Defense, but at the same time, he was heavily invested in Gilead, which got tons of money during this first dry run. I went back and started watching some of my stuff from 12 years ago with Pandemic Level 6, the swine flu, all these different mechanisms that were brought into play that were never there before, dry runs of knock and talks about shots, of pop-up centers, boop centers, in places like shopping centers and schools. All these things happened. Rumsfeld made a killing while sitting, again, as the active Secretary of Defense while this is happening. So just like you said, you had somebody who was actively in foreign policy well before he was the Secretary of Defense under the second Bush administration. Everybody's seen the infamous video of him shaking hands with Saddam Hussein. Everybody knows that he was very, very much a part of the military-industrial complex before that, but that extends beyond domestic and foreign policy as far as warfare and into this biological arena. And I think that now, especially during this pandemic, if you're looking with the slightest of skeptical eyes, you see that same thing repeating.
And this was written about in Naomi Klein's book, The Shock Doctrine. Like this isn't anything that's like, oh, like mind blowing. Really, he was investing in like, in what's it called, in like vaccines and in big pharma. Like all these issues are connected, but it sucks when people aren't looking deep enough or are too afraid to cover it because they think that their channel is going to get taken down. I mean, there's other platforms where you can cover this stuff too. But yeah, it's scary how he was investing in that. I don't remember the exact quotes from the book, but it did say something along the lines like he was hoping for some massive pandemic so that he can make a whole bunch of money off of like vaccines or whatever big pharma comes up with that they can sell.
Well, at the
like
time,
they invest in this stuff.
They did. They pushed it. They were basically, It was the first time they were pushing a triple shot. A lot of people weren't down with it. It was on the Today Show, Meredith Vieira. Anybody who's a premium member, I think you can see that flashback to 12 years ago when I covered it. And then on top of that, they had it rolled out where they wanted 170 million of these doses, which was unheard of at the time in 2009. And then on top of that, despite the fact that Tamiflu really had no effectiveness against this piggy flu, but it was really H1N1 and H5N1. It was really 3 parts flu at the time, which made it suspect of, I don't know, another biological release. Again, we have to pretend that biological warfare wasn't originated with the Nazis during World War II and that we never did it in Vietnam and that we never continue to do it in black sites because we're on YouTube. So let's all play pretend. You know, that's the thing. I don't play team baseball. And in order to play team baseball on a left or right perspective all the time, on a Democrat or Republican perspective all the time, you have to lie to other people. And you have to also lie to yourself if you're going to put that out there. And I got news for people. Lies don't make friends, okay? And they don't progress a healthy society in which freedom is abundant. Instead, they oppress people with these ideas. And then just like you said it, they make people self-censor and then act like they believe things they don't, almost to the point they do start believing them, Franco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a survival thing. Like they this is like where they make their living off of. So maybe there is a part of them, you know, subconsciously where they're trying to trick themselves into really believing that just so that they can survive on this platform and continue to make money. But we have to realize that one of the consequences when it comes to truth telling is, you know, being sought after. Like it's dangerous to try to tell the truth about these things. Look at what's happening to Julian Assange, Craig Murray, Daniel Hale. That's a risk we have to take when it comes to this job.
And the problem is, look, it's not even just a job. I've been telling people this for, again, well over a decade. This is it, especially right now. And all you people that believed in superheroes on message boards and some kind of bullshit that Mike Pompeo and Bill Barr were going to form the super friends and save your ass, you are out your mind, okay? These guys are decades-long players in the very military-industrial complex that has lied to you bold-face again and again and again about so many issues to the point you thought we were leaving Afghanistan, and we're right back, baby. And you thought Barack Obama won the war in 2014 because he said so. And you thought Bush 2 had said, mission accomplished. We did it. We did it. And you thought it was going to be 2 weeks to stop the spread. Well, it's got to be you that stops it. And we are kind of seeing that right now. You know, independent journalism in some respects is flourishing to the point where you have a forum. I have a forum here on Rockfin. There are other players, like you said, The Last American Vagabond, Whitney Webb. You know, you got Slow News Day on the left. You got Kim Iverson on the right. You have these people that maybe don't go far enough, but at least they're talking. You discussed Naomi Klein. I had her on about her 10 steps to fascism over a decade ago. And here we are. And here we are. And I put that interview up. Anybody can go see it. I think it's free on Rockfin exclusively. But we discussed it then, and I was warning about things like the MIAC report, where they were going with this whole domestic terror angle, white supremacy angle, but they always slip a back door in, Franco, right? It's not just white supremacy. Oh, you like Louis Farrakhan? Oh, you're a Nation of Islam Muslim? Black supremacy. Oh, maybe we'll slip at some point if the Hispanic population turns on him, La Raza. There's always something that they can demonize you for and make you into an extremist. So what are your feelings on that as we're starting to see that more than ever, and that narrative that white supremacy is the greatest threat to this country at this point is the one that's being promoted by a zombie puppet?
This is something the mainstream media tries to do, make us think that our enemies are our neighbors. I mean, they're oppressing all of us. We have to understand, why is it that they think this way? Well, our education system is poor, right? So they try to keep us ignorant on purpose. They try to make us obedient workers. They don't want to make us think that, we have more in common with each other than the ruling class that's oppressing us do. It's all by design. Like, they keep us, dependent on these treatments by big pharma and everything. The mainstream media, they're just talking heads for the ruling class. We have to think about why are there, white supremacists? It's because, is it their fault that they grew up in an area that they were indoctrinated into believing these things? Like, they had family members that gave them these ideas. Okay, so then the problem isn't really, a group of people and we have to get rid of them. The problem is, our education system. The problem is propaganda and television. I mean, propaganda is all over the place. It's even beyond television now. We see it on billboards, like in bus stops and everything. So we will never get rid of white supremacy or get rid of any kind of terrorist organization as long as we look at the root of the problem and look at what's creating it, right?
Well, when I look at all this stuff, I'm going to guess you're probably early to mid 20s, right, Franco?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just turned 42. I'm an old man. And I can tell you firsthand, being in the 80s and living in New York too. I wasn't in New York City by any means, but I went down there a lot. Dutchess County, pretty close. Even there was people throwing out N-bombs. Definite outward racism I used to see all the time as a small child. And you would see those stories sometimes hyped up. As I grew up, the Tawana Brawley scandal, for those that don't remember that's where Al Sharpton kind of took off. And it was this young girl. It actually happened, literally 2 blocks away from a place that I ended up living for 3 years at one point. So all of a sudden there was these white cops had beaten and raped Tawana Brawley. And there was a lot of racial tension then, and you could even feel it hyped up then, this racism. I remember as a kid. But then as I grew up and I went from little school to middle school and especially into high school. All that stuff, even though I went to a predominantly white high school, and for sure, there were definitely, upstate New York, definite bigots. I'm not going to, I think there was a wing of the Ku Klux Klan not so far away from where I was in Montgomery County. Still there, but you were gradually watching it start to fade off, Things like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air were popular. Obviously, I grew up in the different Strokes era. Rap was becoming more accessible and acceptable. It wasn't just gangster rap that they were talking about. Now it was hitting the mainstream. By the time that I went to college, I graduated in 97. It was it felt so gone from most of popular culture. And then into the early 2000s, it wasn't even really a thing. You know what I mean? I mean, we elected, whether you like Barack Obama or not, it wasn't far-fetched that you were electing a black man in 2008. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I want to call that the golden age of race relations in the United States, because I don't necessarily think that age ever really ended, except for the hype along the media to divide us, like you said. Because, for instance, I just watched this Woodstock documentary on HBO, 99. I was there. I turned 20 there. One of the greatest times of my life. I had a great time there. They demonized it. They made it all about male toxicity, racism, everything. And they were upset because DMX, in front of a crowd of hundreds of thousands of people, had people dropping N-bombs along with his song, telling them to sing it. And I looked at it such a different manner, where that was a moment where that culture had superseded any race and made it into popular culture. And it didn't matter. They were embracing this guy's artwork, and he was embracing that audience. And what was wrong with that? They weren't saying it in a malicious manner. They weren't saying it. They were saying it in a friendship manner. They're dropping the hard A, folks, in the song. But they're making this into a race issue in 2021. DMX can't even comment on it because he's dead. And I thought it was a big moment of togetherness where a crowd, again, of hundreds of thousands of people was coming, into a moment of joy under this guy's music. I don't know. What is your take? I mean, do you feel like you've seen race relations get worse over your 20 plus years on the planet? Or, what's your perspective?
I think there's still a lot of subconscious and subliminal racism when it comes to, at least in the independent left media sphere. Like, there is some content creators, like it's predominantly white people, right? We have Crystal Ball, Kyle Kalinske, those people. Do they promote small channels that are, Black people or minorities? It's mainly other white people that they promote. Mm-hmm. So was it on purpose? I don't know. It's probably subconscious. And then there's also the case that my friend Nico House, who's I'm also a part of that network, the MCSC network, where he feels like he has to work extra hard compared to these other white content creators, mm-hmm. and they sort of more dismissive from him. Like when he wanted to debate Michael Brooks, he looked at it. Michael Brooks is like, this is a waste of time. I don't feel like doing this. But if it was like Kyle Kalinske, or if it was another white content creator that was challenging him, like a David Dole or something, mm-hmm. then they would have been taking it more seriously. Instead, mm-hmm. people were reacting like, "Oh, Nico, what are you doing, man? You think that you can handle him?" But if it was like Kyle Kalinske and Michael Brooks had been like, "Oh no, this is a waste of time," they would have been like, "Oh, like you're trying to run away from a challenge. Like, what are you doing, man? You scared?"
I think they're more scared of his positions, but then again, I'm not on the inside. I've had so many people, like for instance, right now, the New York Times recently got at me, and they say they want to interview me for the 20th anniversary of 9/11 to talk about loose change. I always put up the same stipulations for any of these mainstream guys. I go, I can't wait. We're going to be taping the interview, and I will agree to withhold it until the article comes out, but afterwards, I either put it out or you come on my show for an hour and answer to your article. He's not coming on. He's not. Correspondence ended. Oh, I'll talk to my editor. No, he's not coming on. I'll give the Esquire guy from last year credit. He did come on. He let me tape the interviews, and that's the only way I'll do it with the mainstream media, because they're always going to try to portray you in a certain light, right? And that's why open debate is scary to them. Live debate is scary to them. That's why this platform of me being able to stream in 1080p across the planet on 3 separate platforms simultaneously is so important. I'm the little guy. I know I'm going to be the little guy. This guy, he was insulting in the goddamn fucking comments. He's like, well, I'll be doing my own podcast, and I'm not sure that your audience would enjoy my material or comprehend it. It's like, fuck you, buddy. Who the fuck do you think my audience is? I got 30% of my audience are women, many of them grandmothers. Are you fucking telling me they can't understand, buddy? Because you got a blue check mark? And I just feel like anybody... You said it in the very beginning. They're worried about their audiences, right? Mm-hmm. I've had people on Rockfin on the left and the right throw shade, conspiracy theorists. Come on. Tell me where I'm a nutball, and we can have the conversation. I'm more than willing to have it. But they're scared about platforming a guy like me. And then somehow discrediting themselves. It's the wildest thing that we can't have discussions. And I think it goes beyond race. I think that identity politics are there, like you said, to divide and maneuver in these situations. And some people have risen really high. But that's why I gravitate towards a guy like Nico House, because he isn't part of the main line. Or I gravitate to somebody like Sky Daddy, who's, I believe, now part of the MCSC network as well. Because she's not making it about that. She sees, look, man, I think we've been in the second civil rights movement in this country for some time. I think it's accelerated. I think we're talking about whether you think you're a rich motherfucker with $10 million in the bank or not, and you got $10 in your pocket, the people at the top look at us as the same. They're fucking licking their lips. They're like, that suburb is mine. That fucking small business is mine. That soul is mine. That arm is mine. It's all mine. And we better group up and realize that there's a few of these people, like, acting as talking heads for the media, or acting as talking heads as politicians on both sides that are helping to oppress us. And that's it. There's not that many of them. There's a whole lot of us. But I think that people in mid-income economic levels can identify with this power when they see their political party doing well, right? Just like people with a couple 100,000 or a couple million in the bank in a small business can almost identify with, oh, I'm kind of the elite too. Look at me. I have a car business. Look at these plebs. And they don't realize we have so much more in common than like a Prince Andrew or a Charles or a Barack Party Boy Obama or even a Chris Cuomo who was beating the Delta variant disco dancing on his Hampton vacation, right? Like that's my point. And dude, it kills me because number one, I'm a white guy, all right? I have no bones about it. A lot of people think I'm Hispanic. I'm not. I can barely speak Spanish. I get it a lot, but it doesn't matter to me. My girls upstairs, they're black girls. I never want them to think that because they're black or a woman, they can't do something, right? That's not how we raise, that's not how we raise them. I never want them I don't want them to think they have a limitation because of the economic background that they come from, right? Like, I didn't feel that limitation, and I know there are so many people that are ready to feel that limitation. And I think that, especially looking at someone like you got to grab your own power. You got to grab your own voice. It doesn't have to be with a headset and a microphone and a video camera, but so many people can do that no matter where you are economically or socially. And I feel like we got to mobilize in ways. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, the point you made about how there's people that are afraid to platform some people just because they're like, oh, like they're a conspiracy theorist. Look at what they talk about. Like don't feel like you have to limit yourself to try to like I'm only going to talk about these issues because it's safe. But also, like, if you're one of those people where you're afraid to platform somebody because they talk about quote unquote controversial issues or they're like conspiracy theorists, then if it's easily debunkable, then you can, if they're inviting you on their show, you can easily debunk it on their show. Then you can help inform their audience, right? So why don't you do that? Like, what are you afraid of?
I don't get it either. Like, I had a great time on Allison Morrow's show. She didn't come at me, like I was a conspiracy theorist. She actually reached out to me. I'm very appreciative of that. But we had a great conversation. I felt like that was a really good, hour plus long convo where she had questions. I felt like I had answers. I could present my answers. And that's one of the things. I love this platform. I get to show people how to follow you on Twitter. I can point to documents while we do it. We can have all three things up. This was not available to me even a decade plus ago when I was working at InfoWars, right? When I'm working at InfoWars, I got two guys on there, and I got to interact with my audience through those two guys, and they got to bring things up, and they got to get the camera angle, and I got to wait for a goddamn commercial break, and yada, yada, yada. Here, I'm free to do it all. And I think that's one of the real powers of even the Rogan podcast, right? Is that long form interview that's uninterrupted and unhindered, and the ability to go to the source material in real time and make a decision. What's so bad about that? I think a lot of it comes with the fear that they might be confronted with source material they don't want to comment on, and that they know exists, but they've ignored purposely. And that kind of destroys their brand, Franco. I mean, there are some people that are genuine, right? Like, so I went on Conspiracy Social Club with Tripoli and Callan. Callan's a huge 9/11 skeptic. He always has been. So I knew that I was coming in there with somebody who thought I was a nutball, right? Out of the gates. I knew it. You know where you're coming from. I'm not going to come in there with the physical anomalies that we can debate over and over and over again. And this scientist says this, and this scientist says that. We see where that's got us in 2020 and 2021, right? Nothing but confusion, anger, hate debates. Instead, I came at him with the background story that Joey B, aka Joe Biden, covered up the ISI Pakistani funding of Atta. And then I started showing him, he's like, oh my God. And then I started showing him the Israeli intelligence group that was arrested before, on, and after 9/11. Oh my God. And then I showed him the FBI whistleblowers, and oh my God. And then 3 hours later in 2 shows, his mind's a little more open, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an honest person. But you get somebody that doesn't even want to comment that Joe Biden isn't a dementia-ridden puppet, and you show them that same thing about 9/11 and Joe Biden admitting. They don't want to see that. They don't want a physical record that they put their eyeballs on that, and that then might have to comment on it later. And that's just a microcosm of where we're at. And I don't think, again, you can have a positive progression of truth or media or a fourth estate or a functioning society without that hardcore truth.
Yeah, they think that their reputation is going to be tarnished if they get proven wrong. Like let's be real, that's probably why they're afraid to come on. They're afraid to be proven wrong. And, they use like, oh, I don't want to be seen like with you because you're controversial as an excuse. But look, what's most important is the truth, right? If you're wrong, you think you're going to look wrong if you admit you were wrong? Like if I admit I was wrong, it shows character. It shows that I'm going to evolve. I like just admit that you're not going to know everything.
Oh, wait, whoa. Well, you're not going to go know everything. Whoa, Franco, that's a wild statement. That is fucking wild, bro. But you're right,
Unbelievable,
man.
Right?
The thing is that, look, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I didn't think that fucking Joe Biden was going to be the nominee. I was watching I watched from the first debate, the very first debate of the primaries. A 00 Joe, way to go. Like, I'm like, they can't put this fucking guy in. I didn't think Weinstein was going to jail. I didn't think that Epstein was going to be able to kill himself twice, like, at all. I got those wrong. I'll get other things wrong. I'm not Nostradamus. And by the way, he got everything wrong. I don't even know if he got anything right, but everybody wants to act like he did. But you're right. The human aspect is so fucking important. And people are more worried about dunking on people and being like, I told you so. I ain't happy about this I told you so moment about vaccine passports and total slavery. I ain't happy of the I told you so moment that fucking the DOJ dropped the charges on all of these different governors, not just Cuomo. Charges. They didn't even bring charges. They dropped the investigation. They never did. I didn't want to be right that they weren't going to look at all this, evidence of what happened in the election. I'm going to leave it at that because we're on goddamn YouTube. But let's talk about that because that's kind of an issue. You do go into mainline politics a lot more. You do talk about voting. And my biggest issue, forget about this election, is that there is no reason to have any of these voting machines in any regard motherfucking ever. And it's not just Dominion. I've been talking about it since 2004 in the Diebold days. There is absolutely no reason to have fractional voting, these machines, anything hooked up to a server. What are your feelings on that? And do you think we will ever get valid election/voting reform where it is actually truly one person, one vote?
Our elections are privately owned. And, what helped open my eyes to that is first Nico House when he was talking about his election integrity activism, and then Combo Couch when they presented evidence to show how rigged our election system is. That people want to talk about, what's most ridiculous is when people still think they can reform the Democratic Party or any party, like the Republican Party. You're not going to reform either one. It's rigged against them. Like the ruling class will make sure there is no actual fighter that wins. And if they do, then they're going to make their lives difficult, or that person's going to sell out for political expediency. No third party, in my opinion, is going to save you because none of them have a concrete plan for how to overcome these obstacles. Like they're suppressing the shit out of these third parties, and they're going to make it impossible for them to win. And as far as what I've seen so far, none of them have a solid plan. So what I try to do is try to get people to solve our problems outside of electoral politics. Like you're not going to have some hero politician to save you. No, the only person that's going to save you is yourself if you take action. So there's direct action, but also you have to do things beyond direct action. Now, what does that mean? Well, we got to deep power. We gotta have to take power away from these corporations, and that will involve being more dependent on your community. So I admire things that Derek Bros does with Freedom Cells. I've had him on the show to talk about that. I'm trying to have a more solutions focused discussion on my show with as many guests I have on. I'll ask them like, all right, so how do you think that we can solve this issue? And then I have every Thursday, I have my audience members on. We discuss solutions. How can we get more people to grow their own food? How can we target certain communities? Not all communities are the same, so the message is going to have to be different. So this is not something that we're going to figure out in just one discussion, which is why I try to do this every week. But we definitely do have to look outside of electoral politics to solve these problems. And I think you would probably agree with that too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, the first thing is that local, right? You can make a difference in your local sheriff's election. You can make a difference in your school board. You can go confront your county board. You can become a member of it. I'm not saying there's not corruption there. There's not behind the scenes backdoor deals. There's corruption in any level of power, right? It doesn't matter whether it's inner workings of politics at work, at your job, or in law enforcement, or in low-level politics. Everywhere there's that type of corruption. But if you put enough pressure, you can take those spots. You can get a state senator spot. A lot of people don't even really know what a state senator is. That's how ignorant we are. You know what I mean? Or you can get behind a state senator that can help change things. Case in point, I had a guy named Jeff Shipley on my program recently with Sonia Swan. She's with America Frontline Doctors. They did an event here in Des Moines, which is a couple of hours away from me. But the really important thing was that I've been meeting with separate Iowa groups and people on the other side of the river, which is in Illinois, Quad Cities, about it. And it's night and day between Iowa and Illinois. And I'm 5 minutes from Illinois. I jump in my car, I go over a bridge, I'm there. The policies are completely different, right? So I go to a meeting in a barn with a bunch of these groups. We're talking about like 75, 80, maybe 100 people are there. Our local sheriff is there. Now, our local sheriff, Tim Lane, God bless him, has already said he will not enforce any mandate, whether it is from the governor or the federal government, period. So my county of Scott County is pretty good. You can get into an argument over a mask even like a year ago and nothing's happening, right? They're not going to enforce that. But we are obviously worried about the kids. Now, I'm from New York. I originally moved here, so the girls upstairs who are now 10 and 12, obviously 9/11 when we came here, could go to school and didn't have to wear masks. By the time we got here, it was at-home learning, and then it was mixed learning, and it was still masks, and I was pissed, okay? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, they were able to go and join the YMCA, gymnastics, volleyball, soccer, all maskless, still having interactions with kids. In New York, you still can't even be maskless outside with kids. That's how fucking crazy things are. So, getting around to the story here, I go to this big barn meeting, and I meet these two women who are fighting the mask system with their children. And it's a heartbreaking story. This one woman, she's a mother of 8. Her daughter got staph infection, I think 4 times from this thing. She got segregated because she wanted to take it off, ostracized, put behind plexiglass in the corner of her. I mean, the most devilish shit you could ever do to a child. So I talk to them. I interview them on a Monday after they go to their next school board meeting in Ankeny, Iowa. At this point, they have moved the podium over so that the live stream no longer shows the women as they protest this. They can just hear them because they don't want that visual to go viral, as you've seen a lot of these meetings go viral. They don't even let one of the mothers speak because of her behavior at the previous meeting. Okay, they force her to put her other daughter up there, and they're heartbroken when I have them on. This is on a Monday, okay? Now, how do I circle this back to local action, local politics? Shipley got involved. State senator got involved. And on a Monday, when they were almost in tears on my show, to a Wednesday when they were sitting next to my governor, who signed an executive order banning masks on all children. All children, not just in Ankeny, where it was locally, where they were fighting, and not just in the Quad Cities, where I was locally fighting, but all children. The next day, my girls didn't have to wear a mask. You know how happy they were when I came home and I said, hey, you won't believe this, but you don't have to wear a mask tomorrow. And my one girl, She said all the boys were doing a dance and singing in school as soon as they knew they didn't have to wear masks. It's a happy moment. And they're starting on Monday, and guess what? Masks are banned here. They're banned. You cannot force a kid to wear a mask. That's a local win. That's getting involved. That's getting, and believe me, I get it. National politics, federal politics. We got a fenced-in fucking D.C. and no accountability on a national election where they're telling you that guy is 20 million votes more popular than Disco Dance Party Barry. I mean, come on. Disco Dance Party Barry, love him or hate him, they sold that motherfucker like a rock star, right?
Yeah.
People loved him. So
do as I say, not as I do, right? With these people, but yeah, that's how it is. It doesn't matter who is in office. We got to apply maximum public pressure as much as we can. Unfortunately, not all communities are going to be as informed about the reality of masks, the reality of vaccines, because they're just so indoctrinated. So we really got to hit them with the root of why there's so much misinformation. We've got to tell them our mainstream media is bought off by corporations. Our politicians are bought off by corporations. So you're gonna be lied to. It's gonna be difficult in a lot of communities. For example, where I live, it's a really neoliberal place. It's filled with all these blue dog Democrats. It's gonna be a lot more difficult for me to convince a lot of people about the reality, of masks and vaccines. What can you do? Like walk up to people and show them like a scientific paper. I mean, I guess it's more helpful now, now that we have phones. But
that was my big moment. The phone was a big moment. Listen, man, you're not wrong, but the problem is with this, and just like I said with 9/11, when you're talking about science, fucking forget about it. You're rolling the dice. You might as well be playing goddamn Magic the Gathering and pulling cards, because everybody's got their own science, right? Like, some people think that CO2 is a lethal gas. Other people are not of that belief, and there's a collision there. Some people think that every vaccine since the history of vaccines is the best thing since breakfast. Some people think that every vaccine since the history of vaccines is the demon devil incarnate, right? There's not a lot of wiggle room in science, and it's really a weird thing. It's almost like religiously held beliefs, and one side can say that, right? The Faucis can say that about the misinformation and disinformation, it being like a religion. But if you flip it on its head and you say, no, this is the religion, then basically you're the conspiracy theorist. You're a problem. I don't know if you saw it, but Facebook announced that they took down 3,000 Russian bot anti-vaccine accounts. Again, was it 300 or 3,000? You know what? I better look at that. I don't want to be wrong.
They always have to tie it to Russia.
And that's
they're the evildoers that we have to take down.
And I thought that shit was over in the 80s. I'm sorry. Yes, it is 300 for everybody. We're going to bring it up. But Facebook bans Russian anti-vaccine network of over 300 accounts. You know what? That's interesting to ask you, because you didn't grow up in that generation of Russia was the big enemy like I did in the 80s, right? It was everywhere. It was Rocky IV, It was the Rambo films. It was, the Cold War was big, the Russians. It was Hunt for Red October, even in the early 90s. That was there. Was it surprising to you, kind of coming from the era of the war on terror and the Middle Eastern terrorist, to that move to Russia again 5 or 6 years ago? Or did you see that kind of just like as a gradual comeback?
It did come out of nowhere, because remember, Barack Obama was ridiculing that idea against what's his name, Romney, right? He was like, "Oh, the 1980s called, the Cold War is over," and now they're bringing it back into pop culture too. I don't know if you've seen, there's some Netflix shows, like for example, Stranger Things, where the second season was bringing back the Cold War. It was the Russians that are that are the enemies that are trying to
get
steal
the
this
upside
technology.
Down. I only watched the first 2 seasons, and they finally got underground. It looked like they were doing some weird Montauk project, MK Ultra type stuff. I haven't seen, but you're right. Even what was that series on FX? And I heard it was really good. I never watched it, but it was basically a Russian spy couple, that the Americans, I believe that's what it was called. And they were Russians. I just did an Event 201, not Event 201, I'm sorry, Earth 2100 watch along from 2009, and the predictive programming and the talking heads that we see even today. It's astounding. The new normal, New York City under quarantine, masks 11 years ago, refugee camps, the gutting of the suburbs, and who's bringing it to you? John Podesta, Van, I just got $100 million, Jones from Jeff Bezos, Eric Schmidt, James Woolsey. Oh, did I mention that Anthony Fauci makes an appearance in this one as well during the pandemic epidemic part? So, to almost circle back to where we came from in the beginning, you see so many of the same names, the same players in so many of the big issues, whether it be foreign policy, drones, the Middle East, or now New York City Pass, Excelsior, the Health and Wellness Safety Seal, and all these other contracts. How do we make both sides aware of it, Franco? How do we do it?
How do we make both sides aware of it? We have to let people know that this is it's not about, any team playing. Like, a big thing that's holding people back is unfortunately hero worshiping. They think that the person that they admire, whether it be a pundit or a politician, is going to hardly ever be wrong. But we gotta encourage people that it shouldn't be about that. It should be about principle. It should be about truth. Be a critical thinker for everything. I mean, I'm gonna be wrong sometimes. You're gonna be wrong sometimes. It should be about the truth. So that's something that I try to focus on my show, is don't hero worship people, because a lot of people have thankfully moved on from hero worshiping politicians, but are now hero worshiping pundits. They're what a lot of the things that they do is admirable, but I mean, they're not always going to be right. So always critically think. And it's not about, what you say on your show, it's not about left versus right. This is how the ruling class tries to keep us divided. It's about, top versus bottom. They're oppressing all of us right now. They're trying to make us think that our neighbors are the enemy when they're not. So just keep hitting that message to people, and it will spread like domino. Your audience will see the truth if you guide them towards that, and then they'll spread that message to their peers. So yeah, that's what I think that's a way we can do it.
Absolutely. At B43 Franco is where you can follow him on Twitter. Tell everybody how they can watch your stuff. And by the way, again, if you're a premium subscriber for myself or Franco, you get everybody's content on Rockfin, and you help support independent journalism. But just like myself, I know that he also puts the vast majority of his stuff up there for free as well. So how do people find you? How do people support you?
Yeah, you can find me at Frank Analysis on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. I'm trying to get on some more alternative platforms. Jason, I really appreciate being on your show. I would love to have you on my show. I feel like I can talk to you about a lot of things, and I know you go really in depth with these topics. And yeah, I feel like there's more to talk about here.
There's always more to talk about.
Yeah,
and that's what people have to understand. This is another thing I tell people. Like you said, we're going to get things wrong. But even what we get right, again, I've only been on the planet 42 years. I barely have a window of about that big to the big spectrum of what's going on in the world. There's 8 fucking billion people around now. That's not including everybody who died or made policy then. Forget about the history that even predates my birth. So I think we have to realize that and be humbled by the enormity of everything that surrounds us, and realize that we can only benefit from other people's honest perspectives and honest research, and get around, this, mind holding bureaucracy. This is the technopoly of a predator class that's coming into fruition, and we could talk for quite some time. We will. We'll do your show. I can't wait. Hit me up with some dates, and we'll get it done, and maybe we'll pick a topic. But there's so many topics to pick right now because things are moving quickly. And we have moved so far away from a constitutional republic in this country, and so far away from the democratic rule of the people, even locally in many places, that it's important that people realize that they have to be their own hero. They have to take action. And you can spread, again, Some of the greatest interviews out there on Rockfin are by yourself. I want to thank you for that. And keep getting the heavy hitters, my friend.
Thank you very much, man. I just want to let your audience know, don't hero worship anyone. I thought Naomi Klein was a hero. Now she's calling the Great Reset a conspiracy smoothie. And we know that's not true. So yeah, just critically think about everybody.
Maybe
Thanks
that's,
a lot,
you know
Jason.
what? Maybe it's Naomi Wolf that I had on, not Naomi Klein. And because you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, it isn't Klein, and I've never trusted Klein as much. Bum bum bum. But both of them were pretty hardcore lefties. And look, you can't write a book as the head of the World Economic Forum with the cover that says COVID-19, the Great Reset on it, and then everything in that and your forums becomes a buzzword like Build Back Better, and tell me it's a conspiracy theory when really all it is repackaged collectivism, authoritarianism, aka New World Order agenda, Johnny nonsense. Franco, it's been a pleasure, and we'll have to do this again soon. All right, brother?
Thanks a lot, brother.
You got it. So there he is, Franc Analysis. You can check him out on the Mi Casa Su Casa network. I need you to thumbs this video up, subscribe, and share. Not even 100 thumbs up for that great interview over on YouTube. Make the free Rockfin account. Make the free Rockfin account. Make the free Rockfin account and support me. I do want to thank the people that tipped out while this great broadcast was going on, and who also subscribed. Shadowband says, Rock Fam for Life Homes. Thanks for bringing on my boy Franco. You bet, Shadowband Refugee. And then Tea Leaves and Mio Paes both gave us a tip over here. We really thank you for that. And we also got a new subscriber last night, James Osher, as well as Claudine Lilla in the past couple of days. So all the other links are down below to support me. Again, go check out Franc Analysis. He does really, really great in-depth interviews. I like his stuff. I like watching him grow. I like watching other people with other perspectives grow their audience. So once again, guys, I love you.